of all players, definitely has, maybe even similar to RDU, some unfinished business in terms of the World Championship. Of course, finishing second to Hunter Race a while back. So I imagine he'll be looking forward to making playoffs, or trying to make playoffs, just to give himself an additional one more shot at Worlds. But for now, all's well with the world. Blyze is in his void as usual, and Viper looking very sharp today.
That is actually some drip right there. Like, well played. That is an outfit.
You've known me long enough, Saul, to know I appreciate a good waistcoat, probably more than most people. So I'm ticking the boxes
would
right
actually rock up to a studio wearing that exact outfit. I can tell you that much. Blyze did confirm for me. I did the hard-hitting journalistic research that I'm known for very recently. Went into Blyze's stream and asked him if he just had a wardrobe full of 100 black hoodies, and he confirmed that is exactly the case. So, fantastic outfits on both sides, it needs to be said.
Yep. Thematic from both. Here, though, this is, of course, going to be the mirror. Very similar to what we were even talking about in the non-mirror between RDU, last match, and Letter, of course, but with slight differences where, although you can talk a lot about Celestial, you do get that the general Glowfly versus Glowfly interactions as well in the mid-game.
Yes.
Oh, double overgrowth, though. Whew. Doesn't look too bad, does it, for Viper? The only weird thing at the moment is he doesn't have anything to really aim for with this extra mana, unless he shuffles in some more turtles, which we try not to get into.
Weirdly, you could argue even that preserving the Nature Studies discount here actually slows you down, right? Because if you do nothing this turn, you play Overgrowth next turn, you play Overgrowth again the turn after that. Whereas you could just play Overgrowth this turn using your coin and your Innovate, and then play Overgrowth next turn, and you're still just a kind of a turn ahead. That's a very weird argument to have with yourself. So one of those things where your brain will be screaming at you that you're being stupid, and you probably are, but it does have the argument of accelerating you just that little bit if you want to go for it. But again, your point, I think, is clutch there, that you don't really have anything to pay off that mana to begin with at this point, so why rush, right?
Yeah, okay. And one of the drawbacks as well, although I do agree with your overall point, is if he spends all of those cards doing the overgrowths, then if he does get a Glowfly quick, then the Glowfly is going to be so much smaller than it could have been.
Yeah. Absolutely. And of course, the payoff now of having those Vates and coins available is that he did get a very timely Lady Anaconda. That was not in the hand while I was going through that dynamic. But now, of course, having access to those cards means that he can explode on the board a lot quicker. But first, Glowfly dynamic has come into effect. And it's Blyze on the other side that is threatening the damage here.
The fear, of course, although the Best in Shell might look like a great response to a board of Glowflies, is if Arbor Up does come down, then suddenly it doesn't feel so great. So does Viper have to just trust in the turtles for now?
Looks like he does. The other option was just to trust in the Anaconda, but I think that's much more ambitious.
Much more likely to lose if it doesn't work.
Yeah. But would have had access to one Germination to make 2 3/7s in the end. But I think even then, the payoff, even if it works, was not of sufficient quality to actually make that play worthwhile. Just gets 2 7 health minions this way anyway, so why bother?
Yep. Fire's going to hold, yep. No reason to just dump all of his minions into 1 2 7.
Well, that certainly was a draw.
Yep.
Should probably do that.
He can Arbor, right, with this?
He can do everything.
Yeah, he's got plenty of mana, hasn't he?
Yeah. Can Fungal, he can Arbor. The world is his oyster.
Can Arbor again.
Yep.
I really thought Blyze was leaning forward to concede then.
You blew him the weight, right? Yeah, I like this. Might as well do this before you commit to anything else. You're always doing it anyway. There you go. That's why you do this before you do anything else.
Got nourished too.
That also costs 0. Yep.
I'm going to rate this turn. Not bad.
It's pretty solid, yeah.
Yeah, I knew.
The bloom, yeah, there we go. Good enough.
Had to be a matter of time, and wow, although, of course, that was a mirror, but again, these Druid games are lightning fast, and not even at the moment really even requiring the Celestial Alignment. Obviously, the mirrors aren't exactly the matchup you're bringing Celestial Alignment for, but still, it's just kind of incredible how fast these have been going with the pop-off turns, even with xBlyzes having, as you can see there, the initiative, right? You got the Glowfly down first, the turtles from Viper bought him just that extra turn he needed of safety, and then it all kind of worked out from there with double germination.
I was too busy focusing on what the actual line was with the germinations and the sequencing for Viper. The first time around, I did not notice that xBlyzes joined in with the salty clap that we love to see from our Grandmasters. But yeah, game one going to go down to Viper here. Nearly got himself caught up in a little bit of sequencing there, but caught it very quickly in the end. Had plenty of time to get through this turn, found the Solar Eclipse in the end, which absolutely shut down everything. Even at the point xBlyzes conceded, this 0-mana Nourish that came off the top then found Cenarian Ward and a second Bloom. So I think there was still like Bloom, Solar, Cenarian at the end of all of this as well if it wanted to come. Didn't even have board space to get the amount of huge threats down into play that he could possibly, and in the end, yeah, xBlyzes just says, that will do for me. You may have this one, sir. And he moves on to the Garrote Rogue instead, which isn't necessarily the hard counter matchup you'd like to be queuing in this situation. It's fine, you have game, but so does your opponent. And ideally, in Last Hero Standing, you want to be queuing matchups where your opponent has 0 game and they just fall over and die.
Yeah, and the other option xBlyzes had was the Fell Demon Hunter as well.
Yeah.
So I can see him going for the Rogue here, trying to get a win here and maybe just snipe an extra win from somewhere else. Because, again, just a reminder, this is Last Hero Standing, so Viper is going to be on that Druid again. It's effectively winning deck stays on. And xBlyzes moves over to this Rogue. Standard list, but honestly, this Rogue has looked pretty deadly in xBlyzes' hands from what we've seen in the past couple of weeks of Grandmasters. He seems super comfortable with all of the combos and like sort of the hard decision making that you have to do, even draw by draw on any given turn, not even turn by turn. He seems very, very confident with. So if anyone can do it right now with this Rogue, I do feel like it's xBlyzes.
Yeah, we've seen it time and time again, not only in his own games, but also on Twitter during other GMs' games, where he feels very comfortable tweeting out what other players should have done in their Garrote Rogue games to have achieved victory. He's also right now running a sub-goal, bit of free promotion for xBlyzes, to do a tier list of European GMs. So if you want some spicy drama to be thrown around, go sub to xBlyzes.
Yeah, when I saw that, I was like, oh no, if he hits his goal, is he going to do casters next? And I was like, oh no, not like this.
Remember when xBlyzes stream just had a copy pasta about how much they loved me? That was great.
Choosing not to remember, so. Whenever makes pastas about me. Well, positive ones anyway. Moving quickly on.
I'll make you some pasta, Raven. It'll be delicious.
Viper did keep the card draw there with the Guess the Weight in the opening hand. Kind of a tricky matchup. Rogue does have the ability to respond to Glowflies. If obviously the draws are right with a couple of Plunderers, maybe Brain Freeze as well, but generally speaking, is the Druid's overall game plan good enough against Rogue, or is it or is it a little bit too slow for Rogue to be able to pop off?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is still a fine counter queue for xBlyzes, but it's not, again, as I said at the start, it's not like the blow-up matchup you would want, because if Viper gets to go ramp Celestial fairly quickly, he can very much still get there. The problem is that Rogue just starts playing minions very early. You want just an aggressive tempo hand, which is what xBlyzes has here, and then those minions just become impossible to kill on the other side, and Viper gets himself in trouble. That Feral Rage is disgusting.
Yeah, I was just going to say there are options for him to pick up something to be able to kill with this, kill this Octobot in one hit. It's a rough one for xBlyzes. He does have okay follow-up though. He has Neophyte, he has Kazakus, which I think is going to be a big deal if he goes for 5-drop Golem. He can potentially even Shadow Step the Kazakus based on what happens.
Yeah, but yeah, just to finish the point, this early curve of minions does tend to happen. They do beat up on the Druid quite a lot. You generally get through about half of the health total early on just by playing some minions. And then obviously you have that Cult Neophyte addition, which can continue to lock out mana turn after turn after turn, especially when you have like Shadow Step, replay Cult Neophyte, Secret Passage, find your other Cult Neophyte, Shadow Step that Cult Neophyte, looking for Cult Neophyte. Yeah, exactly. Generally, it's the card that just has destroyed Celestial Druid since the beginning of time. It's the biggest thing that you've always lost to. But I think on this occasion, Blyze has a tough choice between valuing it on board as a 3-1 Divine Shield or just getting it back down without the Divine Shield. But he is going to choose to do it again. Just as I mentioned, this is so powerful as a thing to keep doing turn after turn against Druid.
Yeah, small nod from Viper. This isn't the most crazy out there play you would ever think of, right? Like, this is expected, again, as you mentioned, because it's so strong, just utilizing resources on that Neophyte. It seems reasonable, and his turn has just been locked up right about now because Glowfly no longer playable. So really, yeah. Shadow Step from Blyze, honestly.
Yes, indeed. Both turns where he's played it, it's blocked something very specific, right? It blocked the potential of growth on the previous turn. It blocked the potential of Glowfly Swarm on this turn coming down. So even though Viper's actually had a pretty good response to the opening, he was able to deal with Octobot, which almost never happens for Druid in this matchup. You can still see some of the problems that arise. But honestly, as soon as Viper gets a turn where he is allowed to play spells, his hand does some real magic.
And the problem is, Blyze, at least... Wait for it. Okay. Blyze is running low on resources, right? There's no field contact anywhere that we can see. He still needs to draw into that to be able to keep this going, because otherwise, he's pretty much on these golems and a dream right now to just carry the game in most extents. Oh, he's not going to play them?
You want to cast a spell?
Play what, sorry?
Golem.
The Golem is poisonous deal 3 to 2, so it's
sorry, I didn't realize. That's my bad. Yeah, apologies. Yeah.
So it's kind of a reactive
Viper
Golem.
would hit copy Divine Shield or something, I guess.
But yeah, he's picked up an option instead to deal with like a big Solar Cenarian play or a Lady Anaconda Germination play instead that might come down. I don't think he was offered any of the really, really aggressive options that he could come out with here.
That's fair. My misunderstanding. Here though, Viper does have Lunar Glowfly to kill off, say, the Kazakus. Seems a little bit weak, but he's a little bit too early as well to really do anything else, right? Unless he wants to just rely on, like, Nourish this turn, so he has Anaconda things the turn after, which seems very slow, and you could just die.
Yes. I think this is frustrating as well, because I think you know your opponent has deal 3 to 2 in hand, because I think it's the only Golem that wouldn't have been played. It would have been absurdly greedy to not play +2/+2 on the previous turn, right? When you had 2 minions in play, I think, at that point. So I think the reactive Golem maybe rush summon a copy, but even then I think you just play it as 2/5/5.
Yeah, I agree, yeah.
Druid, so.
I mean, just listen to my response a minute or so ago when I didn't realize what the Golem was, right?
Yeah, right.
It's like, that's the general thought. The Blyze gets to clear it up. Viper does still have this Innovate. Can he make anything work here with Anaconda? Maybe just go Celestial instead?
Look at this grand finale in Bly's hand. He's mousing over it. He's saying, yeah, go on. I know what you want to do. One way or the other, it's coming down, right? Because he has the prep to play it, even if the Celestial alignment doesn't come out.
And the problem is as well, Viper can't really just say Innovate Cenarian into this because of the poison on board, right? Like, you can't even rely on that. Okay, this has to be big now.
It does. Condra first. Nourish gain the mana.
Got Germination.
Oh, it's pretty big already.
Oh, Solar. He can Solar Cenarian, right? Oh. Or not? He just I was going to say Solar Cenarian because that gives him most options to go for Germination on the 8 drops, depending on what they are. He just ignored that and was like, nah, I'll just nail it first time. It's like, oh, fair enough. And Viper,
there's a lot of ways that you could have ended up playing that, though. Like, he had the option to kind of just dump his whole hand and then even Solar Fungal at the end of it just to refill everything and draw a million more cards at that point. I think there's a bunch of valid ways to end up going about that in that position. But in the end, just even though there was a big punish in the end for Blaze, Celestial into Anaconda into any kind of card draw, in this case being the Nourish, is just usually the absolute nuts in Druid. And again, that's kind of what I was talking about, right? Blaze didn't really have the I win matchup that he would have wanted coming into this as the counter queue. The matchup was fine, but it just wasn't that guaranteed last hero standing counter queue snipe that you'd really like. And now he's going to have to go into it with the Fell Demon Hunter, which again is not a good matchup. I think this is a worse matchup even than the Rogue. It can win, it does have game. Most of that game revolves specifically around Skull of Gul'dan and hoping your opponent only hits 1 Celestial. If they hit 2 Celestials, you're generally in trouble. But sometimes if there's 1, you can use a Skull and maybe 2 or 3 mana when you get to a 2 or 3 mana turn to be able to put together a very powerful OTK just using some 0 and 1 mana cards of your own. But in general, this matchup is a struggle from the Demon Hunter side.
Yeah, there is the kind of, it was an old interaction or outcome that happened with Soul Demon Hunter, right? When they were playing Magtheridon against Druid, because Druid just doesn't have a way to kill it. So there is that spice in there now that whichever way players are building Fell Demon Hunter at the moment, we can talk about some other options later on. This Magtheridon seems to be in everyone's list almost no matter what. And it is just one of those X factors that if Blaze gets to play Magtheridon on curve and then has a way to kill it with the likes of Arcanist Fellscreen Blast or whatever, then he does get a massive minion and that could just beat the Druid up too quickly. So even with, for example, a Glowfly in response, that doesn't generally do enough when the 12/12's probably already hit you at least once at that point. So Blaze has a chance, but again, this Druid already, Sol, just in match 2, is already impressing me a lot.
It's pretty interesting, right? You can almost set your watch by it. It's like, yes, it's Magtheridon o'clock in the current meta. It does seem to rotate around to this point every now and again, where some matchups just appear where Demon Hunter, which is very damage-based, very combo-focused on a lot of occasions. Like, generally, the Demon Hunters that we've seen be successful have either been outright aggro or combo-focused, right? And generally, these matchups come up where you just don't really have enough damage in your deck consistently to beat down opponents, and that's when Magtheridon starts to make an appearance. Tends to happen around the same time in just about every metagame that we've seen. Maybe it's taken a little longer this time around because this meta is a brand new meta every single week, it almost seems like. But certainly we have reached that point now and Magtheridon is starting to become a very common card.
And with this Fell Demon Hunter, there are certain turns, obviously you're looking at turn 8 for Jace in some respects. Sometimes it's a little bit later if you've got some more damage to sort of put into the bank first. But generally speaking, is Demon Hunter with the Jace sort of attack even fast enough against Druid? Because we've been seeing this Druid just get things done on turn 7 and 8, right?
I don't think so, no. I think if you're going to win this matchup, you do it with Il'gynoth more so than you do it with just straight up damage from Jace. Honestly, the only way that I've ever really won the game with Jace in this matchup is when they've played Celestial Alignment and I've managed to rip Skull and then just the stars have aligned and I've been able to play like Il'gynoth Jace same turn and I'm just shooting Chaos Leeches and I-Beams everywhere. I have an Eldraki Warblades equipped and it's literally like 112 damage in one turn or something because of the two of them coming together. Outside of that, it is generally an Il'gynoth combo because it's just significantly more damage most of the time. But even then, this isn't Kurtrus Demon Hunter, Quest Demon Hunter, right? It's very rare that you get huge discounts on your combo pieces to actually make like a 72 plus happen. You really want to be sculling Il'gynoth very specifically to do that, which is what makes the matchup so tough. And honestly, I kind of feel like Druids, if they just ramp and play Solar Cenarian and forget about the whole Celestial Alignment part of their deck, I struggle to imagine how Demon Hunter wins at that point, outside of the Magtheridon that we were talking about, because I sometimes feel like Druids are very happy to alignment in this matchup and think that's the gotcha, and I don't think it's the gotcha they think it is.
Right.
Because sometimes you just skull and you just have 3 0-mana combo pieces in your hand at that point, and it actually increases your damage output at that point. When I was talking before about how if they hit second alignment, that's when you're in trouble, right? Because that ruins that combo plan overall.
Yeah, the Bly's just piling on much pressure as possible. They get to keep the Gorger on board. Oh,
those ain't it.
Does he just play Stelina, sorry, for the yeah, you get to throw away a card, and also it's just a minion? Mm-hmm. Ooh, choices. Gotta be Bloom?
Yeah, I don't think he cares too much about any of these, but it's probably Lightning Bloom, yeah.
Just reduce options?
Yep.
Because if you get an Arbor up this turn that's any fear for you, then something's gone very wrong anyway. So yeah, like this. Okay, there's the Claw Machine. There is a Germination and a Solar in hand.
Yeah, no Bloom though, which is actually very annoying. Because otherwise I think you would just claw one of the 4/3s this turn, right? Get the,
but still studies.
The Anaconda in hand.
If that affects anything.
I think he's still a mana short of fully going off that next turn that way.
Are his other options even better than just getting the Anaconda anyway? Because also with the Germinations on Anaconda, it's also going to be bigger, right? Because it's from Claw Machines, so that's definitely a big bonus as well for his recovery potential next turn.
Time waits for no one.
Yeah, really, really hard turn actually. Only made harder by the fact that the Lightning Bloom was thrown away. Otherwise, I think this is a given. But Viper just going to go for it here anyway. It's just a 6/10. Okay.
Great response. Well, now I have a 4/8 that does 8 damage.
Oh!
Not again, Sol. Surely not again.
Gross! There just gets to Solar Cenarion again. And now he just has the business. Fungal Fortunes off to the races one more time.
Yeah, the fact he has Cenarion means even if he can't kill the Il'gynoth on 7 mana, he's almost certainly safe from lethal anyway. Imagine
trying to consider Bly's hand and work out like what the most AoE he could realistically do with one draw off the top here is, but it's not much. Because even like double Moarg Immolation Aura doesn't do what you want it to do, because the first wave of the Immolation Aura kills all of your Moargs that way.
I like the Solar pickup, because let's imagine a world where everything goes terribly wrong. Even if he doesn't use both Solars this turn, he has backup the turn after, right, with Solar whatever, but I imagine he's just going to stack... It's going to be a big boy. Just going to stack everything. Did he retain the Solar? I think he did, right? Even though...
I don't know. Good enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
He Bloom armored up, okay.
Yeah, fair. Weapon draw. So Moarg, Blood Mage. What if there was a Fell Screen Blast draw? It would have been 2 damage a hit, double to 4, double to 8, 24, plus another 4. 28. Oh, that was actually really close, right? That Bloom armor up from Viper was actually huge brain, because it actually played around that Fell Screen Blast top deck being the initial draw with spell damage plus 1 Moarg, and the Il'gynoth attack.
The Il'gynoth gets to attack, right?
Even if it doesn't go face, yeah. Nice job. Bloom hero power. Clean play. Love to see it.
He's just quickly running through the options here, but I'm pretty sure he will know that the lethal is not possible. He might just lock it in to look at the number.
Everyone, you possess
Wow. And you see the relief from Viper. He saw the spell damage, he saw the Mohawk, but he would know there's no reductions left anyway, so big win there for Viper. The Druid does it again. That's twice in 2 series that Druid has 3-0'd. Of course, in RDU versus Letter, RDU won the first game, but that was Shaman versus Demon Hunter, and then Druid. That's pretty incredible, Sotlan. I honestly didn't see it coming.
And the emotional roller coaster seems like it is going to be full of dips and peaks and highs and lows today for all of these players who are potentially scrapping for playoffs, or more importantly, perhaps fighting for relegation, because Viper did follow the lead of Letter. Letter put 2 points on the board now, cumulative of course, still able to pick up more throughout the rest of the week. Viper followed his lead, which means running total, Letter now on 8, Viper now on 9. 2 players left to play in that relegation discussion just today, several other players in the relegation discussion overall, but those 2 players are Tice, who now seems a long way away from those players on 5 points overall, and J4, who also has the gap increasing on 6 points overall coming into this week, with already 1 point to their name as well. So the relegation candidates are putting a shift in so far through Group A and Group B, and you see what it means there with Viper now progressing through to Saturday, taking his seat out of Group B alongside Frenetic.
Yeah, and Blyze does, even though he did take the loss, is still looking extremely comfortable. So again, as you mentioned, like if you want to phrase it like this, even though it's not strictly true, the players that have needed to win in terms of Grandmasters potential